plaid.
What's that,
It
Tommy?
almost looks plaid.
The plaid?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Scotland.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I had the great good fortune to be there on summer solstice, 1986. And this is far enough north in latitude that there was a period of time for about 4 or 5 hours of perpetual twilight. And so that's when I was up shooting on this bridge and climbing around on it. And you can get an idea, a little bit of an idea of the steel members. Off on the far upper right is one of the tubular steel members. And then you can also see down below, kind of in the bottom quarter of the bridge on the right, you can kind of see the light. That's a 9-foot diameter tube. It's hard to get the scale from this. When you stand underneath it, it's like your Atlas standing under the entire world. You can feel the weight of the bridge. It's astonishing. Here you can see again. This is taken just above the railway deck on the summer solstice, 1986. And let's see. I think that's it for the British slides right now. Yeah, we're going to get to the New York slides here. Now, I have to make a confession here. I wasn't taking photographs when we were climbing bridges in New York in the late 70s, early 80s. These were taken by friends of mine. Henry Petrofita and Jason Wechter shot these photos. And this is the 59th Street Bridge, which the first time I climbed it in 1978 with Jason Wechter, we climbed it and we sang the 59th Street Bridge song the entire way up, just to be annoying. You know, feeling groovy. I don't know if you guys know that song or not.
What is that song? Of course.
Feeling groovy. We were trying to be ironic. Pre-irony, but, you know, we were giving it our best. This is the top of the bridge. This is an architectural embellishment right on top of the 59th Street Bridge. It's pretty amazing how they designed bridges. This bridge was designed and built by Gustav Lindenthal, who was the kind of the dean of New York bridge building in the 1890s, and he was the mentor for Othar Ammann and David Steinman, who later went on to build the greatest greatest steel spans of the 20th century. And Lindenthal had this plan for years, and he spent his entire life trying to get financing to build the Liberty Bridge, which would have gone across the Hudson River somewhere in the 30s to New Jersey, and it would have been a steel suspension tower with granite-clad facing, and the towers that he designed, I think they were going to be 550 or 600 feet tall. He never got the funding. He never got the approval to do it, and it was very disappointing to him. But his protégés, Steinman and Ammann, went on to build the incredible bridges in New York and the rest of the country. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Manhattan Bridge. This was taken by Jason back in the 70s, probably the late 70s. Looking over at Manhattan from the top of the Manhattan Bridge. And here's the following are some photos that were taken in 1998, I think, by my friend Herod Blank, who's a great guy. He photographs art cars. He's an art car designer, and he's done a bunch of books and movies on art cars. And we were in New York for an event in '98, and we climbed the inside of the tower of the Manhattan Bridge, and went up on the top. Wow. At the city, and these are Herod's shots, not mine. And here we are hanging out on top.
Like angels.
Great. When we get, it's hard to believe this, but I mean, maybe it's not that hard to believe. But in the 70s, these bridges were in astonishingly bad shape. I mean, they hadn't been painted in years. They haven't been painted in years, and I'm not an engineer, but from what I've read, I'm an armchair, have an armchair interest in it, and from what I've read, most engineers give major steel spans a lifetime of maybe 100 to 150 years, depending on how well maintained they are. And the first time we climbed the Manhattan Bridge, we went on the road deck, and some of you may remember this. Most of you look too young to remember it, but this is 1978. We went out from the Brooklyn side, and the pedestrian sidewalk had been closed. But at that time, there was no security. Nobody gave a shit about what you're doing. Here we are hanging. When we it's hard this maybe it's but in the really bad. It hadn't been painted in a year. They haven't been painted. I'm not a bridge here, but from what bridge, I'm an arm to bridge. The bridge. I have an armchair in the bridge. And from what I've read, bridge. the bridge. Engineers give the bridge. Major steel the bridge. Like the bridge. 100 to 100 bridge. Depending when it's very well maintained, when it's very when we climbed the we went on the when it's very and some of you when it's very most of it when it's very long to remember when it's very 1970 when it's very we were a deck on that one side, a deck on that sidewalk, a deck on that but at that time a deck on that security no a deck on that ship about a deck on that a deck on that a deck on that we were hanging a deck on that a deck on that when we it's hard to but in the really bad it hadn't been in a year I haven't painted I'm there but from what I'm an arm you know I have an armchair and from what I've read engineers give major steel like 100 to 100 depending well maintained and when we climbed the we went on the and some of you most of you remember 1970 a deck on that we were a deck on that one side a deck on that sidewalk a deck on that but at that time a deck on that security no a deck on that ship about a deck on that a deck on that a deck on that we were hanging a deck on that a deck on that when it's very when we when it's very it's hard when it's very but in the when it's very the bridge the bridge really bad the bridge it hadn't been a bridge in a year a bridge I haven't painted a bridge I'm not a bridge here but from what a bridge you know I'm an arm a bridge you know I have an armchair and from what I've read engineers give major steel like 100 to 100 depending on well maintained and when we climbed the we went on the and some of you most of you remember 1970 we were one side sidewalk about what you're doing but at that time what you're doing security no what you're doing shit about what you're doing what you're doing what you're doing we are hanging what you're doing what you're doing what you're doing what you're doing when we what you're doing road deck it's hard to road deck road deck but in the road deck the road deck really bad road deck it hadn't been painted in a year I haven't painted I'm not here but from what you know I'm an arm you know I have an armchair and from what I've read painted engineers give painted major steel painted like painted 100 to 100 painted depending painted well maintained painted and when we climbed the painted we went on the and some of you most of you I remember 1970 we were one side sidewalk but at that time security no shit about here we are hanging when we it's hard to but in the really bad it hadn't been in a year I haven't painted I'm not here but from what you know I'm an arm you know I have an armchair and from what I've read engineers give major steel like 100 to 100 depending on the well maintained when we climbed the deck on that I almost didn't want to have any part in it because I was afraid I would not be able to control my anger at these idiots and it was one of the greatest learning experiences of my life was going to barbecues with these people reviling their philosophy and actually coming to the understanding that they were human beings with stupid, terrible ideas. They loved their kids, you know, maybe they beat them sometimes, some of them, who knows, but they loved their kids, they hugged each other, they were friendly to one another, and they were friendly to us because they thought we wanted to join their group. And that was a very difficult lesson for me to learn about human beings. And I'm not cutting anybody any slack, you know, we still beat the crap out of them, but, you know, it was interesting for me to learn that at 20 about people. Brooklyn Bridge, I climbed the Brooklyn Bridge 4 times in my life. The last time I climbed it on the Brooklyn SantaCon in 1998, dressed in a Santa suit along with Santa Dennis from Detroit, and we had 100 Santas on the road deck as cover in case some cops came out. So we'd slip into the Santa crowd, and you know, oh, was that Santa? No, it was that Santa. So, but that was the last Santa. That was organized by Julia Solis and William Abernathy and some other folks from Who? Caution Mike, yeah, Mike Connor, of course. It was organized by those guys, and that was it was still Brooklyn Cacophony at that time before it had kind of split up into several other groups. And it was a lot of fun. That was great. That was my last Santa thing. I figured climb the cable on the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm done. Don't need to do this anymore.
Does the Cyclops have reunions?
We had a couple. Yeah. Everybody's really old, and they're talking about their leg. And, you know, What can I say? So what I have, this is the Golden Gate Bridge on the 50th anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge. I went out there that night onto Line Point, onto the road deck on the cliff underneath, as I described earlier, and climbed up onto the lower corridor, out to the tower, got up inside the tower, got to the second level above the roadway. The road deck flattened out. The amount of people on it exceeded by 4 or 5 times the maximum load that you could get if it was literally, people are very heavy. If you pack them in shoulder to shoulder, it was heavier than having it, like a million Mack trucks loaded down on the middle of the road deck. It was very heavy, and it flattened out. And the engineers were very worried, and people thought they were worried about the bridge, the main road deck between the towers collapsing, but that wasn't the big danger.